In the silence of a world forgotten by time, a strange hum echoed through the atmosphere. It was the sound of something waking, something that had been asleep for centuries. The ancient device buried deep beneath the earth had finally come to life. The signal it sent out was more than just a call. It was a summons to those who had once ruled, to the humans who had long been in deep slumber. The first humans to awaken felt a rush of confusion. Their eyes opened to a world they didn't recognize. The air was still, the skies clear, but there was an emptiness about the place, an unsettling silence. It was as if the world had been abandoned. No cities, no sounds of people, no life. The only thing that remained was the faint, eerie hum from the device. It had been their protector, keeping them dormant for so long, but now it was the only sign of life. Slowly, a group of humans stood, blinking in the light that now seemed foreign to them. They moved cautiously, looking around, unsure of what they would find. There was no sign of the mighty empire they had once ruled, the one they had built from the ground up. The planet was barren, untouched, and utterly different from the bustling world they remembered. "Where are we?" One of them asked, his voice trembling. His name was Alaric, and he had been a soldier before the long sleep. He remembered the power they had once held, their fleets, their cities that reached into the clouds. But all of that was gone now, wiped away. The others murmured in confusion, exchanging glances. No one had answers. They had been told to sleep, to remain in hibernation until the time was right. But why had they been awakened now? What had happened in their absence? As they began to move toward the ruins of what had once been a thriving city, the questions only grew. Alaric and his companions tumbled through the dust, their footsteps echoing in the desolate streets. The city, once a testament to human achievement, was now a crumbling shell. Buildings that had once stood tall were now toppled, their broken walls offering no answers. The air was thick with a strange stillness, as if the very land had forgotten them. "Is this our fault?" a woman asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She was Zuria, a historian who had once documented the rise of humanity's empire. She had always believed that their civilization would last forever, that the humans were destined to spread across the stars. But now, looking at the ruins, she began to doubt everything she had ever known. Alaric didn't have an answer. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the fragments of his memories. He remembered the legends, the stories of a great war between the humans and an alien race. He remembered the whispers of an ancient device, a weapon of unimaginable power, hidden beneath the earth. But he had never been told why the humans had been put to sleep. Why were they abandoned? Why had everything been taken from them? As they moved further into the city, they came across strange markings on the walls. The symbols were unlike anything they had ever seen. Zuria recognized them instantly. They were alien, a language used by a species known as the Zenter. The Zenter had once been allies of the humans, but they had disappeared long ago, their motives unclear. Some believed they had left because of a betrayal, while others thought they had been wiped out by a greater enemy. Alaric touched one of the symbols, his fingers brushing against the cold stone. The moment his skin made contact, a flash of light erupted from the wall, blinding him for a moment. When the light faded, a strange voice echoed in his mind. "The time has come," it whispered. "The humans are awake. The empire will rise again, or fall." The voice was haunting, and Alaric could feel the weight of its words. He stepped back, his heart pounding. His companions stared at him, their faces filled with fear and confusion. They had heard the voice too, but none of them knew what it meant. "What does it mean?" Zuria asked, her voice trembling. "What empire? What rise?" "I don't know," Alaric replied, his voice hoarse. He felt a deep sense of unease, as if they were being watched, as if something, or someone, was waiting for them to make their next move. The world around them felt alive with the unknown, with a threat they couldn't yet understand. They continued walking, their steps hesitant. As they moved deeper into the heart of the ruined city, they found more of the alien symbols. Each one pulsed with a faint energy, as though the very walls were alive. It became clear to them that the Zenter had once been a presence on Earth, but their purpose was unclear. Were they the ones responsible for the humans' long sleep, or were they simply bystanders in the fall of humanity's empire? As they reached the central square, they stopped in their tracks. A large monument stood before them, a towering structure that had once been a symbol of human strength. Now, it was a shadow of its former self, cracked and broken. Yet, something about it drew them in. Alaric approached the monument slowly, his instincts telling him to be careful. As he reached out to touch it, the ground beneath them trembled, and the monument began to shift. The stone moved, revealing a hidden entrance beneath. Without speaking, they all understood. This was the path forward, the path to the answers they sought. But as they descended into the darkness, an unsettling thought crept into Alaric's mind. What if they weren't meant to wake up? What if they had been put to sleep for a reason? The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, the silence almost suffocating. Each step they took seemed to take them further from the world they knew and closer to something unknown, something dangerous. Alaric's heart raced as they finally reached the bottom, where they found a massive chamber. In the center of the room lay a device, a glowing orb surrounded by intricate machinery. It hummed with power, and as Alaric approached, he felt a pull, as though the device was calling to him. Suddenly, the voice returned, louder this time. "The humans will awaken," it said, "but they will not be the same." Alaric recoiled, his mind spinning. What did that mean? What would they become? He turned to Zeria, his face pale. "We need to find out what happened. We need to know what did this to us." As the group stood in the chamber, the weight of the mystery pressing down on them, they all realized the same truth. They were no longer the humans they once were. Something had changed, and they would never be the same again. Whatever had awoken them was only the beginning, and the path ahead was filled with uncertainty, danger, and perhaps even the destruction of the very empire they had once built. The time for answers was now, and with each passing moment, they came closer to the truth of their forgotten past. The group stood frozen in the dark chamber, the glow from the orb casting long shadows across the cold stone floor. The hum of the device was almost deafening now, and Alaric felt the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that something was watching them from the shadows, waiting for them to make a mistake. His pulse quickened as he turned to his companions, trying to read their faces. Zeria, always calm and collected, appeared equally unnerved. Her eyes scanned the room, but she said nothing, as if waiting for something or someone to speak. "What is this place?" Alaric finally asked, his voice hoarse. His words seemed to hang in the air, unanswered. The silence was suffocating. The only sound was the steady hum of the orb, growing louder with each passing second. Zeria took a step forward, her boots making a soft echo against the stone. She knelt down beside the glowing orb, examining it closely. "This is it," she said quietly. "The heart of everything. The device that started it all." "Started what?" Alaric demanded, unable to keep the frustration from his voice. He needed answers, but they seemed to be slipping through his fingers like sand. Why were we put to sleep? Why was the empire brought down? Zeria hesitated before speaking, her eyes still locked on the orb. "I don't know," she admitted. "But this device, it's connected to the Zenter. I've read about them in the old records, but nothing like this. It looks like a containment unit, something to hold power or knowledge. But what it holds, I can't say." Alaric stood behind her, watching her every movement. He could feel the tension in the air. He was beginning to wonder if they had made a mistake coming here. The Zenter were mysterious, their motives unclear, and everything he had been told about their history with humanity had been shrouded in secrecy. He wasn't sure whether the aliens were friends or enemies, but the warnings had always been clear. Stay away from the Zenter's technology. "I think we need to get out of here," Alaric said, his voice growing more urgent. Whatever this is, it's not meant for us. We're meddling with something we don't understand. But as he turned to leave, something strange happened. The ground beneath them shook, the walls trembled, and the air grew thick, as though the very room was alive. Alaric's heart raced. He spun around just in time to see the orb flicker, its light pulsating with a violent rhythm. A loud crack filled the chamber. And then, everything stopped. The hum of the orb faded, and the room fell silent once again. Before Alaric could react, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, vibrating in his bones. "Why have you awakened?" The voice was not human. It was ancient, filled with power, and its tone was both commanding and cold. Alaric's breath caught in his throat as he looked around the room, trying to locate the source of the voice. His companions were equally frozen, staring wide-eyed at the orb. The air felt oppressive, thick with the weight of a presence far beyond their understanding. "We didn't mean to," Zaria said, her voice trembling. "We're just looking for answers." There was a pause, a moment of silence that felt like an eternity. Then the voice spoke again, slower this time, as if considering her words. "Answers," it echoed. "Answers are not given. Answers are earned." Alaric's mind raced. This was no ordinary technology. Whatever was speaking to them, it was alive. Perhaps even more than alive. It had to be the Zentaur, or something far older, something that had been lying dormant for centuries, just like them. "Who are you?" Alaric demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. "What happened to the humans? Why were we put to sleep?" The voice seemed to laugh, though it was not a sound of joy. It was a dark, hollow laugh, like the wind whispering through long-forgotten ruins. "You were put to sleep because your kind was too dangerous," it said, each word carrying the weight of centuries. "You were a threat to the balance. Your empire grew too fast, too powerful. The universe cannot allow such unchecked power to exist." Zaria's face drained of color as she turned to Alaric. "The empire," she whispered. "It wasn't a fall. It was a punishment." The voice continued, undeterred. "The humans were not ready. The power you held, far beyond the stars, was taken from you. The Zentaur tried to protect you, to guide you, but you defied them. You awakened something that should have remained asleep." A chill ran down Alaric's spine as he processed the words. They hadn't been abandoned. They hadn't been forgotten. The humans had been punished. And now, the universe was still watching, waiting. "So, what now?" Alaric asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from us?" The voice was silent for a long moment, and then it spoke again, this time with a chilling finality. "You have already started. The moment you awakened, the chain of events was set in motion. Now you must face the consequences. The empire will not rise again. Your future has already been decided." Alaric felt a sense of dread creep over him, but at the same time, he could not deny the feeling that he was on the verge of something monumental. They were awake, yes, but they were also in danger. Whatever had been set into motion couldn't be stopped now. It had already begun. "We have to know more," Zaria said, her voice firm. "We can't just walk away. If we don't, we'll never understand what happened to us. We'll never know why the empire fell. We have to know the truth." The voice didn't respond immediately, but then, slowly, it spoke once more. "Very well," it said. "The truth is within reach. But be warned. The answers you seek may destroy you. Once you know, you cannot return to ignorance. There is no going back." Alaric looked at his companions. Their faces were a mix of fear and determination. They had come here seeking answers, but now they were faced with a far greater mystery than they could have ever imagined. The truth would come at a cost. He could feel it in his bones, but there was no turning back now. They had awoken the past, and now the past was coming for them. With a final, heavy breath, Alaric stepped forward, determined to uncover the secrets of the ancient device. The journey had only just begun, and the road ahead was filled with danger and uncertainty. But one thing was clear: the Empire had fallen, and the humans had awakened for a reason. The world as they knew it was about to change forever. The chamber was unnervingly quiet as Alaric, Zeria, and the others absorbed the voice's final words. The air seemed to thicken with the weight of what had just been revealed to them. They stood in the ancient chamber, surrounded by the remnants of a once thriving empire, now reduced to dust and shadows. Alaric's mind raced, trying to comprehend what the voice had meant, but the pieces weren't falling into place. "The Empire will not rise again," the voice had said. And those words echoed in Alaric's mind, leaving a bitter taste on his tongue. How could that be? How could everything they had built, everything they had worked for, just end? Why had the humans been punished for their power, for their ambition? And what was this greater danger that the Center had warned them about? Zeria, standing beside him, broke the silence. "The Center weren't just trying to protect us. They were trying to control us," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. They couldn't allow humanity to rise too high, too fast. But why? What were they afraid of? Alaric glanced at her, his thoughts mirroring hers. The Centaur, the once mysterious alien species that had helped humanity build its empire, had now become the very reason for its fall. They had put humanity to sleep, but why had they done it? Why had they decided that the humans were no longer a threat they could control? Were the Centaur acting out of fear or something else entirely? What if they were right? Asked one of the other humans, a young man named Lucius. He was a scientist, quiet by nature, but his voice now carried a note of uncertainty. What if humanity's power really was too dangerous for the universe to handle? What if we were never meant to rise above our station? "No," Alaric said, his voice firm, though doubt lingered in his chest. "We were meant for more. We were meant to expand, to explore, to build. We just didn't understand the consequences." "But what if the consequences were greater than we imagined?" Zeria countered, her voice tinged with fear. "The universe is vast, and we were playing with powers beyond our comprehension. Maybe the Centaur weren't just protecting the universe from us. Maybe we were meant to stay dormant until we were ready. But we're still not ready. And now we're awake, with no plan, no guidance, and no allies." Alaric felt a wave of frustration wash over him. They were standing at the edge of something monumental, but every step they took felt like they were being dragged deeper into an unknown abyss. The Centaur had warned them, but they hadn't given them any answers. The truth seemed just out of reach, and yet every instinct in Alaric's body screamed that they had to know more. They had to understand the nature of their downfall. "We need to find more answers," Alaric said, his voice filled with determination. "Whatever the Centaur were trying to protect us from, we need to know what it is. If we don't, we'll never understand how to fix this. We can't just keep wandering around in the dark, hoping things will get better." Zeria nodded, her expression resolute. "We're in this together, but the deeper we go, the more we risk. There's no turning back now." They turned toward the glowing orb in the center of the room, still humming with an unnatural energy. It was the key to everything, the very device that had awoken them, and the one that might hold the answers they so desperately needed. But as Alaric approached it, he felt the same sense of foreboding that had gripped him since the moment they entered this place. The orb was alive, and it had not just awakened the humans, it had set something into motion. The voice had warned them that they were too late, that the consequences of their awakening would be irreversible. Alaric wasn't sure what that meant, but a part of him knew that the Centaur's fear wasn't unwarranted. Whatever had caused their empire to fall was still out there, waiting for them. And now it was coming for them. Alaric reached out and touched the surface of the orb, his fingers trembling slightly. The moment his hand made contact, the entire room seemed to pulse, the lights flickering in time with the beat of the orb's energy. A strange warmth spread through his palm, and a wave of images flashed before his eyes. Cities in ruins, Alien fleets descending from the sky. A battle, fierce and unrelenting. And in the center of it all, a figure, human, but not like any human he had ever seen before. The figure's eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and as it raised its hand, a blast of energy tore through the battlefield, leveling everything in its path. The vision disappeared as quickly as it had come, leaving Alaric breathless and shaken. He stepped back, his mind struggling to make sense of what he had just seen. "What was that?" Zuria asked, her voice filled with concern. "I don't know," Alaric replied, his words coming out in a rasp. "But I saw something. Something from the past. It was like a memory, one of a battle, an ancient war, and a power that destroyed everything in its wake." "Could that be the threat the Zenter were warning us about?" Lucius asked, his voice tinged with fear. Alaric nodded slowly. "It has to be. That power, it's still out there. The question is, what happened to it? Where did it go?" Zuria clenched her fists, her face pale. "If it's still out there, and we're the ones who unleashed it, we need to stop it before it's too late. We can't just keep running from our past." The group fell silent as they realized the gravity of the situation. They weren't just uncovering the secrets of their empire. They were standing at the edge of a disaster that could consume everything they had ever known. The Zenter had tried to warn them, but now it was up to them to prevent the ancient power from returning. Alaric looked at each of them in turn, his resolve hardening. "We have no choice but to find it. Whatever it is, we have to destroy it before it destroys us." But as the words left his mouth, a chill ran through the room. The ground shook again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just a tremor. It felt like the entire world was shifting, as if something immense was awakening, something far greater than the humans had ever imagined. And it was coming for them. Alaric turned to Zuria, his face grim. "We need to move quickly, before it's too late." With a shared look of determination, the group began to make their way toward the exit, knowing that their path forward would be filled with danger. The power they had unleashed was now hunting them, and the only way to survive was to confront it head-on. The fate of their empire, and perhaps the entire universe, rested on their shoulders, and there was no turning back now. The journey through the ruins was anything but easy. The air was thick with the dust of forgotten centuries, and every step they took seemed to be weighed down by the uncertainty of the past and the dangers of the future. Alaric led the way, his thoughts constantly shifting between the haunting images he had seen inside the chamber and the ever-growing fear that the power they had awakened would soon find them. As they moved through the desolate streets of the fallen city, the silence was overwhelming. The city had once been a bustling hub of human life, filled with towering structures and the sounds of a thriving empire. Now all that remained were the crumbling skeletons of buildings, their shattered windows reflecting the sun's dying light. Zuria walked beside Alaric, her mind clearly occupied. She had always believed in the potential of humanity, had always seen the stars as something to be reached for, not feared. But now everything had changed. The history they had known was false. The Zenter's warning was too real. Something was out there, waiting for them, and they had no idea what it was. "We're running out of time," she said, her voice barely audible. "We need to find out what happened to the Zenter, to the power that destroyed the Empire. Every minute we waste brings us closer to the unknown." "I know," Alaric replied, "but we don't even know where to start. That device, the orb, it's not giving us any answers. It's only shown us pieces, fragments of the past. We need a way to unlock the rest of it, to find the source of the power before it finds us." "There's got to be something we've missed," Zuria insisted, her eyes scanning the landscape around them. "There's got to be something here in the ruins. The Zenter must have left a clue, something to help us." Lucius, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "There's one place left we haven't explored. It's the central tower, the highest point in the city. It's the only building still standing almost intact. If there's anything left of the Zenter's records or technology, it might be there." Alaric turned to look at the tower in the distance. It stood like a sentinel against the horizon, its jagged edges cutting into the sky. It was a testament to the human ingenuity of the past, and yet it was also a symbol of their fall. If they were to find answers, that tower was their last hope. "Then that's where we're going," Alaric said, his voice steady. "We need to find out what the Zenter were trying to protect us from. We need to stop whatever has been set in motion." The group pushed forward, their steps growing heavier as they neared the tower. As they approached its base, the air grew colder, a chill creeping into their bones. The tower seemed to exude a kind of foreboding energy, as if it were alive, watching them, waiting for them to make a move. When they finally reached the entrance, they found it sealed. The massive doors, once made of gleaming metal, were now rusted and covered in vines. Alaric stepped forward and tried to push them open, but they wouldn't budge. Zeria stepped beside him, her eyes scanning the entrance for any possible weak points. "There's a control panel here," she said, pointing to a small, hidden door at the side of the tower. "If we can access it, we might be able to bypass the lock." Alaric nodded, his heart racing. They couldn't afford to waste time. Every second counted now. He watched as Zeria quickly worked with the control panel, her hands moving with precision. After a few tense moments, there was a faint click, and the massive doors creaked open, revealing the dark, hollow interior of the tower. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the walls were lined with strange symbols. Symbols Alaric had never seen before. Some of them resembled the markings they had found in the city, but they were more complex, more intricate. They seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, as if the tower itself was alive. "This is it," Zeria whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "This is where the Zenter hid their secrets." They stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The tower was a labyrinth of twisting corridors and open chambers, each more mysterious than the last. The further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It felt as though something was watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake. "We're not alone," Lucius muttered, his voice shaking. "I can feel it. Something's here." Alaric's instincts kicked in. They had been followed. There was no doubt in his mind. But who, or what, was stalking them? Was it the power they had awoken, or something even more dangerous? As they continued deeper into the tower, they stumbled upon a massive chamber. The walls were covered in more alien symbols, but in the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient weathered book. The book was bound in what appeared to be leather, and the pages inside shimmered with an eerie light. "This is it," Zeria said, her voice trembling. "This is what we've been looking for." The Zenter's records. Alaric moved closer to the pedestal, his breath catching in his throat. The book felt heavy, ancient, as if it held the weight of untold knowledge. But just as he reached for it, a loud crash reverberated through the tower. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the lights in the room flickered violently. A shadow moved in the corner of the room. "Get away from it," a voice shouted. It was a voice Alaric didn't recognize, but it was filled with authority and fear. They spun around to see a figure emerging from the darkness, cloaked in tattered robes. The figure was tall, its face hidden beneath a hood, but there was no mistaking the fear in its voice. "What are you?" Alaric demanded, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. "What's happening here?" The figure stepped forward, its hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I am a remnant of the Zenter," it said, its voice calm but urgent. "You've awakened something far worse than you realize. You must leave this place. The power you have disturbed is coming for you." "What power?" Zeria demanded. "What have we awakened? What's coming?" The figure looked at them with a mix of pity and fear. "The ancient enemy. The one the Zenter tried to keep contained. The one your empire unleashed long ago. The one that will bring about your destruction if you do not stop it." Before they could respond, the tower shook again, and a deafening roar filled the air. The walls cracked, and the very ground beneath their feet seemed to split. The figure's eyes widened in terror. "It's here," the Zenter remnant whispered. "And it's coming for all of you." The group turned to look at the door they had come through. It was already being torn apart by some unseen force. They had no choice but to run. They had come for answers, but now, they realized, the truth was far worse than they could have ever imagined. The power they had awakened was alive, and it was hunting them down. The air outside the tower was thick with dust and an eerie quiet, but the ground beneath their feet continued to tremble, signaling the arrival of something far more dangerous than anything they had ever imagined. Alaric's heart pounded in his chest as he, Zeria, Lucius, and the Zenter remnant sprinted through the ruins, the sound of the earth shaking behind them growing louder by the second. The power they had unknowingly awakened was close, too close, and they were being hunted. "Where do we go?" Zeria shouted over the cacophony of rumbling ground. Her face was pale, but there was a fierce determination in her eyes. "What do we do now?" "We need to find shelter, somewhere we can regroup and figure out our next move," Alaric replied, his voice hoarse. The weight of what had just happened hung heavily on him. They had uncovered the truth, but it was more terrifying than they could have imagined. The ancient enemy the Zenter had feared was real, and it was coming for them. The Zenter remnant, still leading the way, spoke urgently. "We can't outrun it. The enemy is not bound by time or space. It will find you, no matter where you go. But there is a place, an old stronghold from the days before the fall. It's hidden far from here. If we can reach it, we might be able to hide and learn how to stop what's coming." Alaric's mind raced. They had no choice but to trust this mysterious figure. Every moment they spent here only brought them closer to their doom. "Lead the way," he said, not waiting for any further explanation. "We don't have time." They ran for what felt like hours, dodging falling debris, and weaving through the cracked streets of the ruined city. Every step was more exhausting than the last, but the constant tremors underfoot kept them moving forward. Behind them, the ground seemed to split open, as if something enormous was rising from the depths. The enemy, whatever it was gaining on them. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the city, where the ruins gave way to a vast, desolate landscape. Here, the wind howled across the barren earth, sending dust swirling in every direction. In the distance, barely visible against the horizon, stood a massive cliff face. The Zenter remnant pointed toward it, his voice growing more urgent. "There, the stronghold is within the cliffs. We must hurry." The group quickened their pace, though each step felt like it might be their last. As they approached the cliffs, the ground beneath them seemed to ripple, and Alaric could feel the air growing colder, thick with a presence he couldn't quite explain. Something was coming closer. The sense of danger was overwhelming. When they reached the cliff face, the Zenter remnant pressed a hidden panel in the stone, and a door slid open, revealing a dark tunnel leading into the mountain. Without a word, the group rushed inside, the door closing behind them with a heavy thud. The tunnel was narrow and winding, and the air was stale, but it felt like a temporary reprieve from the terror outside. They didn't stop until they reached a large open chamber, the walls of which were lined with strange devices and ancient symbols. The faint glow from the symbols illuminated the room, casting long, eerie shadows. The Zenter remnant turned to face them, his expression grave. "This is where we must make our stand. The stronghold was built to protect against the enemy, but it's not enough. We need to activate the old defenses." "What enemy?" Lucius demanded, his voice cracked with fear. "What exactly is chasing us, and how do we stop it?" The remnant hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and filled with sorrow. "The enemy you've awakened is not from this world. It is a being of pure destruction, an ancient force that existed before the rise of the Zenter. It was sealed away by our ancestors, kept hidden from the universe for millennia. But your empire, the humans, unleashed it. You opened the door, and now it seeks to finish what it started. Alaric felt a chill run down his spine. So, we're not dealing with an alien species. We're dealing with something older, something much worse. The remnant nodded. Yes, the Zenter had their reasons for fearing the humans. Your power, your ambition, it was too great for the universe to contain. The ancient enemy is driven by a singular goal: destruction. It will consume everything in its path until nothing remains. The Zenter tried to contain it, but it was beyond even their control. Zarya clenched her fists, her face a mixture of anger and determination. How do we stop it? How do we destroy something like that? The answer lies within the ancient technology we built to contain it. The remnant explained. We have one final weapon, a device capable of sealing away the enemy again. But it is incomplete. You must activate it, and the process will require a sacrifice. There is no other way. The room grew deathly silent. Alaric's mind raced. Sacrifice. He didn't know what the remnant meant, but he could feel the weight of those words. He looked at his companions, their faces filled with the same mix of fear and resolve. I don't care what it takes, Alaric said, his voice steely. We stop this thing, no matter the cost. The remnant nodded, his eyes somber. You must be prepared for what is to come. The device is located deeper within the stronghold, but it will not be easy to reach. The enemy will follow you here. It will not stop until it has destroyed everything in its path. You must hurry. Without another word, they moved deeper into the stronghold, the sense of urgency growing with every step. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the narrow corridors, each one leading them closer to the heart of the stronghold. As they approached the central chamber, Alaric could feel the air grow heavier, thicker with tension. The enemy was close. He could sense it, the presence of something vast and terrible, reaching out to claim them. They entered the chamber, and in the center stood the device, the ancient technology that the Zenter had used to imprison the enemy. It was a massive structure, a fusion of alien technology and human design, and it hummed with an energy that sent ripples through the room. This is it, Zarya said, her voice trembling but filled with determination. We activate it, and we stop the enemy. But just as she moved to approach the device, the ground shook violently, and a dark, powerful force swept through the room. The enemy was here. A shadowy figure emerged from the walls, its form shifting and twisting like smoke, but its eyes, glowing with an unnatural, malevolent light, locked onto them. The remnant stepped forward, his face filled with sorrow. This is it, the final battle. You must activate the device, or all will be lost. Alaric turned to face the enemy, his hand tightening around his weapon. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and it would take everything they had to survive. The ancient enemy had come for them, and the fate of the human race rested on their shoulders. There was no going back now. The battle for survival was about to unfold, and they had to be ready, no matter the cost.